Everybody, welcome back to another AP Precalculus video.
Today we'll be going over the FRQ basics and everything you need to know.
Alright, so here are the basics of the FRQ section on the AP Precalculus exam. The FRQ section is section 2, so you're going to be doing it after the multiple choice. You have 1 hour to complete 4 FRQ questions. Keep in mind each FRQ question is multiple parts, so it's not just 4 straight up questions, but we'll look more into that later. And you're going to be getting one of each of the 4 types of FRQs, which again, we'll be going over later. So section 2 is 37.5% of the total exam score, and it consists of 2 parts, so each counting for 50% of that score. So you have part A, which is 30 minutes, and you get 2 FRQs, which are calculator active, so you are allowed to use your calculator. The calculator goes away for part B, which is also 30 minutes, and you also get 2 FRQs, so that consists of the 1 hour and the 4 FRQs. And regarding the calculators, check on the College Board website, or you can check in with your AP Pre-Calc teacher to see which calculator models are approved, because there's a bunch of approved ones. The most common one is going to be the TI-84, and that's the one we're going to be using to be teaching the calculator active questions.
Alright, so on the exam you will have 4 types of FRQs on the free response section. And the first one will be testing function concepts, and it will pull material from Unit 1 and Unit 2. It will also be calculator active, as well as FRQ 2, which is about modeling in non-periodic contexts, and this will also pull material from Unit 1 and Unit 2. Now for the non-calculator FRQs, there is FRQ 3, which is about modeling a periodic context, and this is just Unit 3. And then FRQ 4 is symbolic manipulations, and this will be from Unit 2 and Unit 3.
Alright, so going more in depth into each FRQ type, FRQ 1 is going to be function concepts, units 1 and 2, calculator active, as said before. We're going to look at what we mean by function concepts. So we're going to be analyzing functions that are represented through graphs and tables. So you're going to be given a graph or a table, and then you're going to be analyzing the functions. And it's consisting of 3 parts, and these function concepts could be anything from this list. So function composition, inverse functions, input output values, zeros of a function, and behavior of a function, or identifying which function type matches the graph or table best. So right here we have an example of that. We are given a table, and then it's 3 parts, part A, part B, part C. Also keep in mind each part has multiple parts. And right here we have a composition question. Right here we have an inverse question and a lot of other concepts. So this is just a look of what FRQ type 1 could look like, the function concept type. And this FRQ is actually going to be solved in another video. We're going to be going in depth on each FRQ type. We're going to be solving examples of each FRQ type, and we're going to have videos for those in the description box below when they come out. So you can go check those out if you want to figure out and practice how to do these.
Okay, for FRQ 2, there will be 3 parts, part A, part B, and part C. In the first part, you'll be using given information that's given in the question to construct a function that can model a system of equations. Part B, you need to calculate, apply, and reason with average rates of change. So part B is mainly going to be focused on average rates of change. In part C, you need to make a conclusion or an assumption about the limitations of the model. So here's an example of FRQ 2. And as you can see in part A, it's asking you to construct an equation. So it's writing 2 equations. Part B, you have to find the average rate of change. So part B is mainly focusing on average rate of change. And then part C, it's asking you to find an error in the model. So you're just finding the limitations. This FRQ will be solved in a later video.
Okay, so FRQ 3, this is going to be the first of the 2 non-calculator active questions. It's 3 parts. So part A, you're going to be identifying coordinates on a given portion of a sinusoidal function, so a sine or a cosine wave. And you're going to be doing that from looking at vertical and horizontal translations and dilations based on the context of the question. Part B is going to be constructing the actual equation by using these translations and dilations. And then part C, you're going to be answering questions on the behaviors and the rates of change of said function. So right here, you're given your context, and then you're given your sinusoidal wave, and you identify your points, you write your equation, and then you answer questions on the behaviors, so positive, increasing, those kinds of things, and rates of change.
All right, so the last FRQ you'll have on the exam is FRQ 4. And for this FRQ, you need to solve equations using the given functions. You also need to know how to rewrite the function in different forms and determine exact values of expressions. You also need to know your exponent rules, your log rules, and you need to know how to use different algebraic methods to combine terms. So here's an example of FRQ 4. In the first part, you are just solving the equation. In part B, you need to know how to rewrite given functions in equivalent forms, and you also need to know your log rules and your trig rules for this. Same thing for part C, and you need to find the domain.
All right, so now we have some basic tips for the entire FRQ section for the exam. So when you're using your calculator, if you have a value that you need for another part of the question, don't round or truncate it because that might skew your final answer. You want to make sure you do all the rounding and the truncating for your final answer. So you want to utilize the calculator's store function. So this will be easier to see when we do examples where this concept applies. You can look up tutorials on how to use the store function of your graphing calculator, and we will mention it when we are answering our FRQs in our other videos. All right, and speaking of rounding and truncating, for your final answers, AP graders check answers 3 digits after the decimal point. So you want to round or truncate, so cut off, at the very least 3 digits after the decimal point. So for example, 4.576. And there's actually nothing stopping you from writing the entire large number that the calculator displays, because as long as that number is accurate, you won't get marked off for writing more, but you don't want to write less than 3 digits after the decimal point. Right. And if the problem is based off context, such as the ones we saw earlier, FRQ 2 and 4, you want to make sure that you're answering your question in context as well. You want full sentences, and we want to add units as well. Keep your calculator mode in radians. Again, you can look up tutorials on YouTube. We will mention it in our other videos when we're actually solving these FRQs, how to turn your calculator into radian modes, because all angles on this exam are in radians, not degrees. So that's really important, and we recommend making sure it's in radians before your exam starts. All right, and don't circle your answers because AP graders are also looking at your work as well. That's part of the grading rubric. So if you circle your answers, they might not look at your work. They might think that the rest isn't part of your answer, if that makes sense. So you just don't want to circle your answers so that they look at everything, and then you get as many points as possible.
Thank you guys so much for watching our FRQ Basics video.
And all FRQs shown in this video, we will solve in depth in separate videos. So those will be in the description box below when they come out. Be sure to stay tuned for more math help.
Bye!
Bye! Okay. That was good. Banger.